The first dilemma is from Victor. I have a crush on my cousin. I'm a 19-year-old male, and ever since I went over to visit my cousin, whom I haven't seen in over 4 years, she's 20 years old, she has grown big boobs and a nice... I know I'm sick, but I can't shake this feeling off. I like to think that I'm pretty gifted at giving advice. I mean, I've built a whole entire brand, dropped out of college to give advice to people. Every once in a while, I receive a question that makes me reconsider the path that I've taken. This is one of those questions. Now, Victor, look, I'm not here to put you down. I have a very live and let live mindset. I like to mind my business, if you will. That being said, this is easily the craziest dilemma I have ever received in my entire life. I don't think it gets much crazier than this. Now look, you said, let me just reread this one more time just for absolute confirmation. You said that you have a crush on your cousin. Now the first thing that I want to ask is, when you say your cousin, what are we really talking about here? Are we talking about a distant cousin? Do you share the same last name? Do you look alike? What type of cousin are we talking about? Because what I would advise you to do, and like I said, I have a very live and let live attitude towards people and towards life, generally speaking. But understand that you can't just go around telling people that you're with your cousin, right? Assuming that you guys end up together, which I would advise you not to do. If you do end up together somehow, some way, okay, hopefully it's a distant cousin and your parents just won't know. But if you do end up together, you can never have children. Don't ever have children. Just don't do it. Okay, don't do it. Don't have children with this person. As far as getting with your cousin, like I said, I would never advise you to do that. But I'm just going to assume that I can't convince you to not do that. Okay, I can't convince you to not do that. And if that's the case, then here's what I would advise you to do. I would advise you both to never tell anybody about this. Okay, just don't tell anyone. I would advise you to move as far away as you possibly can from the rest of your family. So if you guys are from the US, you want to be in China. You want to be in Russia. You want to be somewhere that nobody's going to. You want to be in Iceland, right? You want to be somewhere very, very far away, preferably a place where they don't speak the language, and a place where they will never figure out that you guys are cousins. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I would also potentially advise you to change your name. Both of you, change your names. If you end up together, you gotta move and you gotta change your names. You have to prevent this information from ever getting out. Now, like I said, I cannot sit here and advise you in good faith to get with your cousin. I just can't do it. Love is love, I understand that. I can't advise you to do this. I can't. So, here's what I would say. Okay, at least you're not in love with your cousin. It sounds like you're just lusting. You're down bad. You're down atrocious. You're down abysmal. And it's okay. It's okay to be down bad. And you know what? I commend you. I commend you for putting this information out there. Especially using your name in the process. Because any 19-year-old by the name of Victor is now on the hot seat. But in all seriousness, bro, in this type of situation, you might need to seek therapy, bro. You might need to seek therapy. That might be the best thing that you could do for yourself. Because, again, I don't think you're in love with your cousin. I don't think you necessarily have a crush in the traditional sense. I think that you're just lusting, right? And that means that you haven't really learned how to control your, let's call them intrusive thoughts. Right now, how do you go about controlling intrusive thoughts? And I understand everybody watching this video is judging this man, but I'm not saying that you guys have had crushes on your cousin, but everybody has intrusive thoughts. Thoughts that they would never want the rest of the world to know about. Myself included. Everybody does. But here's what I would advise you to do. I would advise you to, first of all, get yourself a journal. Okay, and you need to start journaling this down and retrace your steps. Figure out where this came from. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly find yourself feeling attracted to your cousin. That's not something that just happens, right? There was some type of experience that you had when you were younger, that opened the door for this to even happen. You need to figure out what that experience was. And actually, I want to put this out there. I reckon that a lot of people's first sexual encounter is actually with a family member. And that doesn't mean that they are necessarily sexually active with a family member, but maybe the first person that they saw naked, or the first time that they developed a certain kink or something of that nature. A lot of these things develop when we are in our formative years, and oftentimes the only exposure that we have to these potential pathways that lead to these types of dilemmas are with our family members, right? So understand that this right here is probably a lot more common than people realize and are willing to admit. Okay, like I said, everybody has intrusive thoughts. Not everybody has intrusive thoughts about their family members. Okay, I know I personally don't, but everybody has intrusive thoughts nonetheless. You need to start journaling this down and figure out what opened the door, what allowed this to happen in the first place. Now, it's one thing to acknowledge the fact that, hey, my family member is a good-looking person. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think you should give your family members that encouragement. My grandma tells me that I'm a handsome young man all the time. That doesn't mean she has a crush on me, right? So you can acknowledge the fact that your cousin is a good-looking woman without having a crush on her. But as far as this lust, you gotta let that shit go, bro. You gotta let that go. And I understand, you didn't ask for this, right? You didn't ask for this. It's not fair. But at the same time, you have to do the shadow work. You gotta start looking within and, like I said, journaling and seeking therapy, figuring out where this came from. You don't wake up one day and just think that your cousin is a 10 out of 10. That's not how it works. What happened in your formative years that led you to this dilemma right here? That led you to being the version of Victor who is looking at his cousin in the way that a lot of men look at any woman on the street. Right? And like I said, there's a lot of people judging you watching this video, but everybody has their shit. Everybody has intrusive thoughts that if they got out, they would never hear the end of it. Right? So I commend you for putting this information out there, because it takes a bold person to do that. Like I said, bro, seek therapy, journal, figure out what experiences in your formative years caused this to happen. This doesn't happen overnight. And once you figure out that experience or those experiences, if there were more than one of them, you need to make your peace with those experiences. You need to allow yourself to feel whatever feelings you couldn't process at that time. You see, the reason why we have these intrusive thoughts is because a lot of times when we're young, we experience something that we're not mentally equipped to process. We're not psychologically equipped to process. And because of that, we draw these overarching conclusions and we live our lives based on these conclusions that didn't really have adequate context because we were too young to process them and to rationalize them. For example, if somebody told you that you were ugly as a kid, a lot of times you'll grow up believing that you're ugly, even if you're not. You might be a GQ model. You might have that sort of potential in you, but the fact that that person told you that you're ugly means that you don't see yourself in that way, and you project a different type of energy. But that's a whole different discussion for a different day. The point is, this doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up thinking about how bad your cousin is. You need to figure out why this happened. What is causing you to have these lustful thoughts? I'm assuming that you don't just have a crush on your cousin. You probably just think every woman who is even moderately attractive is somebody who you want to hit, right? And at this point, for you, it seems all bets are off. There are no more boundaries. You need to learn to have a healthier relationship with sex, with women, and with your libido, with your physical attraction to women. You need to learn to have a healthier relationship and to corral that energy and use it in a productive way. This is why things like semen retention and nofap are very, very powerful. This is why I would advocate for you to practice these things. This is why I've done a complete 180 back on the path of nofap. And you know what? Here in the near future, I'm going to explain to you guys how you can get to 90 days and beyond on nofap, so that you don't ever find yourself in a situation like Victor.